So we're going to get started here. Up next, we have Claudia Cozzitorto doing a great presentation for us on why openBIM is integral, especially in Canada right now. There's been a lot of talk about ISO 19650. Earlier, she's not going to talk about ISO 19650, but she's going to talk about openBIM. But you heard earlier today what's happened in the UK. When it comes to kind of the Canadian marketplace as well, I think everyone's kind of fully aware now. We've been looking at those as well. So Public Procurement Canada, some of the federal government projects, even provincial bodies are looking at that. On the flip side now, a lot of our design production firms, construction firms are really trying to push openBIM as well. So Claudia, I mean, I'm not going to butcher your introduction too much, but she's got over 15 years of experience in Ontario and BC as an architect. She's also been leading the Toronto BIM community for a while. She's kind of a force to be reckoned with when it comes to BIM in Canada. So anybody that kind of practices BIM has heard of Claudia as well. So it's really exciting to have her here. She's also on the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada for the Institute for BIM steering committee as well. So RAIC is a pretty big body in Canada for architecture. And also, she's an expert for the Canadian Handbook of Practice version 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so without any more time being eaten up by me, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. This is just an intro slide. We are having a buildingSMART National Summit in October, so just wanted to let you know about that. Okay, so international openBIM implementations. I did want to thank Building Transformations for inviting buildingSMART Canada to at the event. We have a few sessions. This one's the first. And I am the president of buildingSMART Canada. And I won't go through my bio. Didn't realize I was getting intro. Thank you. So the president of buildingSMART Canada. I've been with buildingSMART Canada for 12 years or so in different capacities. And I'm also the principal at BIM DNA Group, which is focused on business processes in digitalization. So again, processes strategy first, and then technology follows. We're also, BIM DNA is also a new member of Building Transformations, so we're quite happy about that. And we're just about to release our assessment tools, so also pretty jazzed about that. I've been doing assessments for over 10 years. It's an integral part of, I think, strategy and planning. So, okay, so without further ado, what we're going to talk about today is buildingSMART, and we're going to talk about a national and international perspective. So I often get asked, how is Canada doing and what is happening around the world? So I'm going to share some of that. And then I'm going to talk about why openBIM. And I think that's another very important part of the conversation that we should be having. So buildingSMART Canada, of course, believes in collaborative approaches based on openBIM tools, technologies, and processes. We've been around since 2011, and we're a federally non-for-profit organization. But we're part of a very large community, and our community is both national and international, so and local. So our local community is made up of many affiliate groups, local groups across the country, and we're starting up and incubating an Atlantic region affiliate group currently. So that allows the local members to participate and collaborate at a local level. And then internationally, we're part of 35 chapters around the world, and this community is growing. So we've been, again, part of the international community since 2011. And being part of this international community keeps us apprised of what's happening in other countries, as well as being able to also contribute to the standards that are being developed globally. So this is a photo of one of our, I'm hiding somewhere in the back there, of when we get together a number of times a year to discuss the different standards, how the chapters are working, how they're collaborating with government, and so forth. So buildingSMART International, again, is focused on, seamless exchange of trusted information across the built environment. It's really focused on bringing that collaboration together internationally. And then I think just for a high level definition, if you don't know already what openBIM actually is, it is a specific term. It enables global universal data sharing for BIM data, regardless of the proprietary BIM platform or tool. So this is a very important definition. openBIM was established again for that global universal sharing of data, and is not dependent on any particular tool or platform. So again, neutral in nature, and it's a common language for the life cycle of the data. Another component is that openBIM standards are not just one standard. It's actually a suite of standards and services that exist for an entire life cycle of the built asset information. So this gives a holistic approach to data management and interoperability. So I know I mentioned I wasn't going to be speaking about ISO. ISO is a whole other talk, but openBIM and ISO 19650 do go hand in hand. They're both very important BIM, international BIM standards, and highly supported by buildingSMART Canada. So last year, NRC commissioned us, NRC is the National Research Council of Canada, commissioned buildingSMART Canada to understand the state of adoption in Canada and to conduct an international analysis, all in the effort of updating our roadmap that we released in 2013. So this is the publication that it came out earlier this year. It's been very well regarded internationally, and you can download a free copy from the buildingSMART website as well. And this is some of what I'm going to be summarizing in our discussions today. So what we found was the BIM adoption in Canada, and some of this might be what you're expecting, but that the higher adoption rates were in the larger metropolitan areas, that there was a higher adoption amongst architectural and construction firms, as well as engineering. And then that innovation does appear within Canada, but it's very inconsistent. So like pockets of excellence, but not consistently seen in any one particular sector, although vertical infrastructure is much stronger than horizontal. And that we're not seeing as much happening in the operators and owners. We also learned that in Canada, there's a bit of a discrepancy around digital delivery. So we have a large sector that delivers digitally beyond PDFs for quite a few projects, and then some that do not deliver digitally. So again, a mixed bag. There's not a lot of consistency as far as digital delivery goes currently. We also found that there's very few companies and organizations that are using ISO 19650 or are complying with ISO 19650. So this is an area that, of course, we need more education on here nationally, and that the challenges with openBIM that we found was that people were not aware of what it is, and there's insufficient training, something that we're going to fix today. And then, to my surprise, we found that there was actually very little opposition for a BIM mandate. So there was actually quite a lot of support from the participants to have a BIM mandate. And so internationally, what we're seeing is two types of mandates exist, either one for owner owner submission or for regulatory submission. So those are the two types of standards, and there wasn't much opposition to that. So that's a good sign. And actually, in some of our workshops, we found that people were hoping for some sort of consistency to come from leadership. In our international review, and that is just a summary of our national findings. You can find more, of course, in our report. The international review, we engaged many countries, not all of the chapters, but the ones that were really strong leaders in digital transformation and BIM practices. And we actually had the opportunity to engage with them personally because we're part of this international community. And found that we were looking for answers to kind of 6 criteria. These were the criteria in which we were really hoping could help with our roadmap. Right, was the intent of the exercise, was to find out what we could learn from other countries that are further along. So I'm gonna identify just a few items that, again, I get a lot of questions about. So what's happening in the U.S.? In the US, we're seeing model as a legal document, which they might change to legal deliverable. Very prevalent in the linear infrastructure. So where we're strong in the vertical, they are stronger in the horizontal. And this has lots to do with the US Departments of Transportation, the DOT and AASHTO have put a lot of energy, created a roadmap in 2022. And are working towards, again, model as a legal document, so moving away from the delivery of drawings. In Singapore, they have mandated BIM for any projects over 5,000 square meters, and that is a national BIM mandate for the regulatory approvals. So a little bit different BIM mandate than what we've seen in the UK. This is for a regulatory submission, and CoreNet-X was the project. It's using the tool LeapThought, which I believe is upstairs. And it's gotten a lot of attention, again, because of the success of the implementation and the mandate and its ability to collaborate amongst many agencies and automate code compliance checks. And then knowledge sources. So we looked at a lot of countries. This is just one example, NEMA in the UK. But a lot of countries that were strong in their implementation had a lot of resources available to them. These were often funded by government, and something that we cataloged and noticed in many countries. This is NEMA, which the UK rebranded partially to move away from some of the terminology that was getting people hung up. Okay, so now 4 key takeaways that I also want to share that I think is very useful. So the first was on technological innovation. So we observed that in the countries that actually embraced openBIM, that there was a lot more innovation that was happening there. They had access to a lot more tools than we see here in Canada, but that all of those tools did follow some standardized data exchange and workflows. So they did play nice with the standardized openBIM standards, and therefore the industry had a lot more access to a variety of tools. We also saw, and I just mentioned, that the openBIM knowledge was significant, that there is a lot of awareness because they had a lot of resources made available to them. And that the role of government was very important in directing the industry. So because of a mandate, the industry was all moving in one direction. And this allowed to demonstrate leadership to the industry and incentivize change. So the role of government was key, and again, was very strong in all of the countries that had quite a lot of advancements. And then the fourth big takeaway was that the value and business benefits. So this is very important that although you can advocate for openBIM, as you know, buildingSMART Canada is doing here, what we really need to do is make sure that it's in the context of a global economy, that owners and operators have to understand the benefits. And so from this research, you know, we kind of identified that the benefits, the business value is what we need to kind of change our story, right? So what we're really good at is talking about what is openBIM. We've been doing that for 10 years. I've been at many conferences explaining what openBIM is. We also do pretty good at explaining how to use openBIM. But I think the conversation really needs to change as to why do we need openBIM? And so that was a big takeaway from the report, and a position that we want to change the conversation to clearly articulate why openBIM matters. And actually, this has become an important strategic initiative from buildingSMART International. They're working on use cases and ROI on openBIM. So if you have any case studies on the use of openBIM so that we can leverage it for this research work, I would love to have Canadian projects in that international research, and they've asked. So please let me know if you've done anything with openBIM and have an ROI. Okay, so I'm going to identify 5 reasons why openBIM is important for Canadians that we kind of teased out of that report, and I think hopefully will resonate with you. So the first is standardization. So I talked about, we know we have a 3-tier government here and no BIM mandate. So the industry has implemented sector by sector, business by business, project by project as well, a bottom-up approach. BSC is taking a middle-out approach, trying to navigate industry and government and try to mediate and through consensus get us all moving in the same direction. But what we see is that we're always reinventing the wheel. So we've heard a little bit about productivity issues, and the industry is not efficient, and but we seem to be always reinventing the wheel. Every project is a new adventure, but we already have so many variables: new sites, new construction teams. Maybe it's a different construction method. We need some standardization of the data, some standardization of the processes that we can just rely on and then focus on the work itself. So if we can get some efficient and consistency across projects, then we can work together and become more efficient, producing consistency. openBIM encourages standardized practices and build a cohesive network of professionals who work in unison, right? That right now we're not quite there yet. I know we're in a transitionary period, but this would reduce risk and improve quality. And some of the consistency can be leveraged through the use of ISO 9650 and other standardized processes. Okay, so the second is advancements. So we need to be able to globally collaborate. And if we want our industry sectors, our businesses to be able to operate globally, we all need to be keeping up with what's happening internationally. So this is a big reason why openBIM is also important in some of these other international standards. If other countries are operating this way, far more advanced than us, we need to kind of get up to speed. So we also need to be able to collaborate with our friends to the south. We probably work across the border very frequently, and so again, coming to terms and working consistently across the border is very important. buildingSMART Canada and buildingSMART USA talk monthly, so we are trying to bring some standardization and some workflows across the border to make these workflows easier for industry. So we also want to be able to work in whatever tool is best for the job. So this comes up a lot. We do not necessarily do that here in Canada, and I would say probably the US is in the same boat. We don't have a lot of options, and we kind of don't really question it. We have tended to work in with a very small pool of tools. And the advantage of openBIM is to really enable us to have the flexibility to work in whichever tool is most best for the job, right? So, and I think if you are modeling or you're in these tools on a daily basis, you know that there's differences between them, and one tool doesn't work best for every single scenario. So being able to have the ability to choose whichever tools work best, as well as reducing monopolies in the sector, is very important for all of us. We also saw again that when we looked at different countries that were really strong and had a lot of diversity in their tool sets, they were all very knowledgeable and used openBIM, which again gave them the opportunity to leverage many different tools within a project team, internal and external project teams, and the innovation was much higher than what we're seeing here. Also, being able to choose the tools we want and not having monopolies will drive the improvements in those tools. So I hear a lot of complaints sometimes about different technologies really not responding to the needs of the users. Again, this is one way to help with that. Okay, third is collaboration. So we have collaboration is always a very important component of a BIM, and we historically have come from a very fragmented industry. It's becoming more and more specialized, and teams are increasing in size, and the amount of information we're exchanging is becoming more frequent and larger in size. So we also have two official languages in Canada, so English and French, but we are truly multicultural, right? We have sometimes those languages are second, third languages, so we have already a lot of communication challenges sometimes on across the country. We also have a very large country, so when we talk to other chapters, they didn't have some of the challenges that we have because they have geographically a smaller area. Even when we collaborate within our own country, time zones and distance is a challenge. So our communication is further stretched because of these additional contextual issues in Canada. And so if we can centralize our communication and make that universal means of communication available through BIM collaboration format, which is data exchange, as well as IFC, which is the kind of foundational openBIM file format, and then open common data environments, then we'll improve our communication and alleviate some of the pain points of collaboration that can happen both synchronously and asynchronously. All right, and then data management is another real reason why openBIM is important within the industry. So data ownership comes up quite a bit, and if your tool or your data is within a particular file format or platform, you really don't have access necessarily to that data without that tool or that platform, right? So do you really own the data? Do you have the keys to your information? Is it secure and reliable and stable over not just the short term, but the long term? openBIM, again, is just a free open file format type. And it's agnostic to any particular tool. So thinking about your data and whether you actually have access to it outside of these tools and platforms is really important. So open exchange file format, that's free and well documented, and really then you'll have the keys to your data if you want to change platforms, change tools. Those tools don't exist anymore. That company is no longer around, etc. And then we also need to be responsible and think about data and information over the life cycle, right? And we see this kind of equal planning, design, construction, operations phasing. But in fact, planning, design, and construction are short in comparison to the life cycle of the information. And so we have to really think about the data, again, not just in our short-term design and construction, but in the long-term need of the asset over operations. Also the preservation and protection of that data for the future, and its use for renovations, additions, and so forth. Our assets are not static; they change over time, and it's becoming more and more common to repurpose, to add on to build on top of. So owners and public authorities can better control their data if it's open, and they can manage their portfolios, and they can trust that the data is stable over, again, that long term, and build on top of it. So again, renovation, an addition, compounding the asset information over time, rather than thinking about it just as like a completion at the end of construction. So if we're not renovating, we could be decommissioning our assets. And as we think more and more about circular economies and the way that we can perhaps, rather than just demolish, but deconstruct, we'll have the ability to actually quantify and catalog all the objects that are being removed for reuse, right? So it's a database of the objects, of the assets within the built environment that can be, again, that data, that information has a lifespan much longer than often what our involvement is in the project. Compliance. Okay, so under compliance, there's a few different items. So we all understand our contribution to the climate issue, and our industry's contribution to carbon. So there's lots of efforts now, lots of discussion around decarbonization. How can we calculate our carbon impact? And this is another project that NRC is doing, working on using openBIM to calculate embodied carbon and carbon reporting. So another important use case using IDS, which some of these acronyms I'm throwing out there, you'll learn more about them if you come to the next session. But IDS is another openBIM standard that's being leveraged to do automated checks on some of these reporting calculations. So we also have a huge crippling housing crisis. Now, I'm not saying openBIM is going to solve that, because that problem is very complex, and but it has shone some light on our regulatory process. And I shared with you what they're doing in Singapore. Accord is a project that's happening within Europe. It's the same efforts where they want to automate code compliance and digitalize the development approvals process. And we're not, and it's all based on openBIM standards as well. So what we're doing here in Canada, again, NRC at the forefront is working with buildingSMART Canada, us, and ETS on a framework to do just that. So we could be seeing development approvals in our near future. This framework, it's a common data framework. It's also the digitalization of the national building codes and so forth. So all the foundational items that we would need in order to bring compliance to our automated compliance to our development approvals. But we don't want to just think about the building code compliance, it goes beyond that. We want the whole story about the natural and built environment. So regulatory compliance requires BIM data about the property lines, about adjacencies, about the context in order to do real site plan approvals checks and zoning compliance checks. There's also a need to do urban planning, visualizations and simulations to use digital twins, which we heard about this morning. So the BIM and GIS domains are coming together in order to facilitate all of that. Another reason why both openBIM and openGIS are really important, right? The data needs to be agnostic, can be used and talk to one another. So buildingSMART International and Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC, have been working on a roadmap which they released earlier this year. Very promising and exciting area, especially if you're interested in digital twins. Okay, so why openBIM? So we're striving towards, really in removing data silos, right? We don't want data silos. We also want an open and interoperable future. We want to look at information that's connected, exchangeable, reusable, and brings real value to our natural and built environment. We also want information really to come full circle, right? So information can feed and support other projects, as well as, a kind of digital thread of information that can be used to predict insights about our future. All right, so those are the kind of why BIM. I just wanted to talk quickly about buildingSMART Canada, and then we can open up for discussions because we have some time. So the first thing is that buildingSMART Canada did release earlier this year the International Professional Certification Program Foundation level. This is an international certification that we've just made available here in Canada. We have about 100 people who have taken the exam. If you don't feel like you might be ready for that, you can take the free entry level. It's on the website, and just test your knowledge. And that's free. And then if you feel that you're ready, you can take the foundations. It includes both openBIM and ISO 9650 content, and you get all the base knowledge, and then we will be releasing project management and practitioner shortly. So the practitioner is a lot more like how do you apply openBIM, and so that will be coming out soon. And then again, join the openBIM community. You can become a member of buildingSMART Canada or participate in our events. Again, we're part of a local, national and international community, and it's all about participation, working through our problems together, and really developing value and resources to push us all forward. So we will be at the Geomatics Canada national event in October. I hope I see some of you there. We're, again, merging the BIM and GIS discussions, trying to bring subject matter experts from both domains into one room, and really hoping to merge that conversation. I think in the future, it will be just, the same experts, in one, rather than these siloed domains. All right, so that's my presentation. If there's any questions, we have a small group so we can chat. Oh, yes, great. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes.
So I always have the question when I look at openBIM presentations, why is it always presented as the opposite of a single tool?
Mm-hmm.
Why, do we tell people to fear a single tool for everything?
Yeah.
Tell them to go and use different tools. And my question is, because openBIM is not, for me, it's not really about that, because that single tool allows you to export in IFC or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's open.
Yeah.
You can go wherever you want. So basically, the single tool is not the problem. The problem is not using openBIM. Because, for example, I'm from Dassault System.
Yeah.
CATIA V5, we didn't talk about IFC because it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
CATIA V6 is fully based on IFC.
Mm-hmm.
But the soul, the vision, is giving everything to everybody, like for web industry. Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, so I cover this a little bit in the next session where we dig into openBIM in a technical way. I'm going to relook at this presentation in that light because I think that's a really interesting point. I don't believe in any in any single openBIM or closed BIM. I think actually most projects operate in a hybrid, even when the openBIM is included. I think that this is more about an awareness of whether you're working that way or not, you know, and the ability to have your data sit outside of a particular platform or tool. And that awareness is very low here in Canada, and the use of it is very low here in Canada. So that was the intent of the conversation, but I agree with your point. It's not to say any particular platform is bad or that's not the right way to work. I can see that if you are all working in Revit on ACC, there's no reason to export to IFC and exchange data, just exchange via Revit, which is fine, but it's to not exclude the ability to have other tools as well in the ecosystem of a project, right? Yes, excellent. So I had use.
Yeah, let's say openBIM standards were adopted everywhere, right, overnight. If I'm an owner, what do I get from that very specifically? If I'm a GC, what do I get from that very specifically?
So the owners benefit from the stability of the data over the long term. So native file formats are fabulous short term, but they're not reliable in the long term. And I think anyone who's tried to open a Revit file after 5 years of not using it knows. I'm seeing the nodding, yeah, like the pain. It doesn't always work well. So again, the owners and the operators who need that data for the long term, openBIM is really a great. IFC particularly is great, but openBIM in general is also an ecosystem of the ways that we work. So some tools are using openBIM, but you don't actually see it like a Revista or a BIM track, right? They're using the BCF standard and they've made the service available, but they've used that neutral file format to exchange collaboration information. A contractor would have the same benefit. They're federating probably many trade models together. So I know Navisworks can do quite a bit of that, but they can also do that in other tools like Celibri, where they can now federate many different models coming from many different trade tools together and do checks, interference checks.
So if I'm an owner, it's just like, is the ROI for them better? It's easier to maintain their asset because they can see the 3D model. Like,
Yes, they have.
Is that the killer use case for openBIM from an owner's perspective?
It's well for everyone, right? So even if you're a designer and you have your portfolio of projects and you want the data from all of your projects, if you want it in the long term, it's a more stable file format. Also, if you want to change, let's say you have a common data environment and you want to change from one to another, well, that's pretty hard if it's proprietary. That means you have to export everything. So lots of small use cases I was trying to unpack here. If anyone else has any other. Yes.
It might be a silly question, but what is it? Is it a document type or is it a software? So you talked about Revit that can open from 2012 to say 2020.
Yeah.
Is openBIM giving me a software or is it just a file type that I can?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
What is it? I'm a little bit confused.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the next session was more of the technical talk on IFC, or on openBIM. So IFC is a file type.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is there's not a software, and they're all data standards.
That is working with different softwares.
Yeah.
That's essentially the way
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
Think of it like a schema.
It's a schema. Yeah. It's a data schema. That's what IFC is. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I had one here. Yes.
So speaking on like the fine line or creating longevity in the model and then creating a fine line between like construction and like demolition, could you talk about maybe buildingSMART's perspective on facility management, standardization, and information?
What is our perspective?
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a standard? Is there like goals for a standard? Is there
Yeah.
goals for
Well, we're trying to, ISO 19650 has outlined a number of information requirements. Like, it doesn't say the specific information requirements, but identifies that you should have information requirements so that that information can be leveraged during operations. So we are working on, potentially standardizing some baseline of information requirements that could be used by operators during operations. Yeah. So it's happening. It's just that there's like a lot of so the owners and operators are probably a little further behind than the design and construction teams. So they're coming up to speed now, and they're looking for some baseline standards, right? So, the information requirements, such as like, I need warranty information, I need to know who installed it, when is it coming up for replacement, all of that type of data is what the IDS would be checking for that the team is inputted. Yeah. So they're the services to the long-term use of the data, often during operations. Yes.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit more focused on coordination with the team on site. Nowadays, I'm trying to sell BIM. It's a little bit more of a basic question. Sell BIM to people like job site people, superintendents, whatever. They don't want to they don't want to learn anything. So I'm trying to kind of introduce them to it. I know this is very common, but I've never been in the position of having to be the person who is introducing them. So I already have a few strategies to start get them to use Navisworks Freedom, just teach them a few things, and once they see, oh my god, this is useful, they will start to like it. But what would you say would be the best maybe approach or a few points, to sell how to use this to this profile, because we like this, right? That's why we're into it, but
yes. Okay, so a little bit outside of the openBIM kind of concept, but implementation, I think, always should start with business processes. So where are their strengths, weaknesses? If they have areas that they can improve on, what are the opportunities that technology can bring? Often trades are motivated by prefabrication, which we heard a lot about this morning. So that can improve or speed up their processes, and then they need to be introduced probably slowly, develop a plan to do so. Those are some of the basic things. But I mean, people need to want to change. Either they don't want it. If they don't want to change, it can't be. In my opinion, I mean, the only way you can force it is if you have mandates, right? So or you have a requirement to deliver that way. So if there's a requirement, then they have to deliver, and they don't really have a choice. If they have a choice, they have to want to do it.
And all that, just if you make it so if you know what they're actually doing, make the technology automated, quicker, more repetitive, just do something. There's the wide gamut of possibility. Pick the 2 or 3 tiny things.
Yeah.
I'm a tradesman, and I'll say, crap, I can't
just bit by bit.
Now I'm in. And you can then weave more onto it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can talk more, but I'm sure a lot of people have strategies on how to convert people over, but convert, or eliminate them. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Just to add before my question.
Yeah.
The use case scenarios you need to go. If you field team, you need to bring a lot of use cases.
Yeah, use cases is good.
Case scenarios and talk to them to each case scenario and how that can bring revenue. We can talk about this after for sure.
That's a good point. Yes, use cases, because people think that it's never been done often before.
I know it's not openBIM, but it's
Yeah, that's fine.
related.
Yeah, it's BIM related, of course. Yes.
So you did mention earlier in your conversation a lot of tools and resources like potentially in UK and Singapore, they have it, that they were able to implement openBIM, while versus in Canada, US, we are in the same boat where we have likeness in that. can you tell us like specifically what kind of tools you are referring to, software or workflow or resources like BIM mandate from the government or resources manpower? Like just like I need to understand what is your vision here. What is the, like we're trying to highlight what kind of success story like in Europe we
Yeah.
have versus here in Canada we don't.
Right, right. So a lot of like the UK mandated BIM in 2016, so that's quite some time ago. When they did that, they are asking like for openBIM deliverables that usually makes the awareness larger. There's also in many other sectors of the world more diversity in the tool sets. So openBIM was needed because they had that diversity. In North America, we just don't seem to have the same type of diversity in tool sets, and so the awareness is low because people are like, well, I don't really need it because we're all working in the same tool. I've actually seen a lot of projects require it, like they dictate, whoever the prime is. Sometimes it's the owner, sometimes it's the BIM consultant or whomever. Dictate that everyone use Revit, right? Makes everything easier, but now no one has any choices. So if there's no need for openBIM, then there is no awareness about it here. So we're just trying to bring that awareness here. Also, if in the future we get automated or some sort of requirement for openBIM in the development approvals process, then the industry will need to know how to use it, and as well as if owners are requiring it, which they should be. Yeah, yeah. So okay. Oh, we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
Big round of applause
Oh,
for
thank
Claudia.
you. Sorry, we